one of the roots, fundamentals of a property crash is when people are speculating. I heard that from my parents in the 1997 when people were buying kasi bibilin ko to kasi in next year if i-flip ko agad. Oh guys, sobrang hot ng property. The price is sobrang mahal. Ang bilis sir mag-profit. If you buy it now, next month price increase na agad. But if you go to the place, wala naman development, wala naman infrastructure, walang population, walang consumer. There's no McDonald's, there's no Jollibee. So there's nothing. Yun yung nangyari noong 1997. Parang people were just speculating. And I think we are all more informed na right now. So if it's a speculative property, then that's the possible na mag-crash. But if it's a property na, for example, kunwari lang sa BGC, may nagbenta sa'yo na kaibigan, presyong 10 years ago, then you buy it. Then the chance of it will crash or lose value is very minimal because of the quality of the development. When you're doing these kinds of creative way of payment, I need you to learn to think of all the possibility. If you're the buyer naman, 5 million rent to own, you're now paying 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 year to, 4 years. But you're not holding any title yet. What if suddenly yung kausap mo nag-pass away and then it's now under extrajudicial settlement? You now have to deal with the heirs or the spouse. Hindi nila alam what happened or they do not acknowledge your lease to own contract. You've created a certain problem. I'm sure it will be solvable naman kasi you have a very good contract to sell or something. But what am I saying? We kind of put ourselves in these kinds of situations na stressful by going into this creative installment scheme. What top skills would you advise for newbies? Yeah, newbies, okay? Noted. You can go work for a real estate company. It will really immerse you to this whole business. Number 2, try to identify a mentor. You know, just go into your family tree. Look for that rich tita, rich tito na may paupahan, na may property. And then you go to the tito and say, "Hi tito, can I invite you for coffee?" Then you learn. When you want to learn from somebody, don't say, "Can you teach me?" At wag yung nag-message ng mahaba sa Facebook, "Hi Sir Carlo," haba, di ba? "Can I invite you for lunch?" Di ba? Minsan medyo magastos konti, pero di ba, "Sir, I'm just a student. Can I invite you for McDonald's lunch?" Di ba? 300 pesos, you just save up. I'm sure that mentor will see your heart and they will agree. Even if there are like 3,000 vacant units, you don't need the 3,000 tenants to like your unit. How many do you need? You have 1 unit in Verge. How many do you need na tenant? Only 1. So you don't have to look at yung mga property report ng whole Philippines because that is not your concern. GDP is not your concern. The percentage rate of vacancy is not your concern. Your concern is, may office building across my condo. I just need 1 person who needs a residential unit and I want him to find me. And I want my condo to be suited for that person and my price to be matched to that person's salary. And I want to be reachable. I want to be searchable. Kung ikaw kasi ang nagbebenta ng property, if you're the seller and you're gonna do a rent to own, it means hindi mo makukuha yung 5 million in one go. You're gonna get it in trickles. The challenge with that is you now are playing a role of collection agency. What if after 2 years, 3 years, suddenly mag-stop na siya magbayad ng monthly? Oh no! Pero may nabayad na siya sa'yo na a few million. How will you exit that peacefully? Personally, I think it's quite complicated to do a rent-to-own agreement. Let's say your contract is well-made. Mas maganda yun para on the day na hindi ka magbayad, we are technically out of contract and lahat ng binayad mo is gone. Important lang dyan is your contract has a lot of mga scenarios in place. What to do pag nangyari to, what to do pag nangyari to, pag di ka makabayad, how many days is the allowance, and after that, we forfeit contract. When you're doing these kinds of creative way of payment, I need you to learn to think of all the possibility. If you're the buyer naman, 5 million rent to own, you're now paying 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 year to, 4 years. But you're not holding any title yet. What if suddenly yung kausap mo nag-pass away and then it's now under extrajudicial settlement. You now have to deal with the heirs or the spouse. Hindi nila alam what happened or they do not acknowledge your lease to own contract. You've created a certain problem. I'm sure it will be solvable naman kasi you have a very good contract to sell or something. But what am I saying? We kind of put ourselves in these kinds of situations na stressful by going into this creative installment scheme. We always have to do it legally. Legally first, in the right manner before yung tipid. We don't want to be tipid first and then shortcut and then we get into trouble. Remember, this is a big property, this is a big acquisition. For all you, the legality of the transaction is always first. What are the steps you use to pick yourself up in your lowest point? One thing that my mentor taught me, and this is so valuable to you guys. Whenever you have a problem, you have to identify what kind of problem is that. 90% of our life issue sometimes is a money problem. Money. As you realize these kinds of issues, when it happens to you, ma-analyze mo na, okay, nagasgasan yung kotse ko, it's money issue, no problem, I'm not gonna let it ruin my day. Ang dami nito. And it all boils down to money issue. So the earlier you can analyze this, the earlier or the faster you can recover. Where is a good place to invest in condos? Okay, you are buying a condo mostly for two reasons. The most important one is number one, because you want the rental income. And the next one, you want the property to appreciate in value. Perfect example would be BGC during 2009. Anong meron? It's upcoming. Parang, uy, I heard that this new place is upcoming. Magkakaroon ng international school. It's gonna be a place where the buildings will come up. Para ka na nasa first world country like Singapore, Dubai, or Australia. Hahanapin mo ngayon, guys, kung ano ba yung next in line. Para mura pa lang, at papunta pa lang lahat ng development, you have to find that. Importante yun. Kasi in property, you are buying the upswing. You are not buying when it's already at the top. You are buying when it still has potential. Where is real estate in the Philippines leaning? Wow, fantastic question, grabe. Given the current global crisis, will it boom in the coming years, stagnate, or crash? The answer is we don't know. We don't know what's gonna happen in the future. What is your option, no? So for example, if limited lang yung money mo, if it's limited, and it seems like you are worried of the market na it might crash, then my recommendation for a conservative person is just hold on to your cash. You don't need to take the risk. 'Di ba? Especially kung nag-worry ka, don't take any risk if it's worrying you. 'Di ba? But yun nga, in my as you hear me analyze, we always analyze with data, we analyze with information. But if you're in a position like some of you here, mga millionaires, billionaires, and you just have excess cash, you have to deploy some of them and turn it into hard asset din. Why? What if after this global financial crisis, pandemic and all, mag-boom ulit yung economy? You want to be at least invested partially. Not all in. What's nice about property nga is if you reach a point, 5 million, kunwari, di ba? You reach a point wherein you need money. Ito sa bangko, kailangan mo i-withdraw. Itong sa property, you can tell the bank, can I mortgage my 5 million house? Gamitin ko muna tong pera, I'll put it in another investment or in a business. That business will pay for the amortization. That's where the leverage comes in. So we have one session all about refinancing and leveraging, wherein you use this property na 5 million na bayad na at makabili ka pa ng isang property na may rental income at magbabayad siya ng amortization ng bank. And then fast forward 10 years, bayad na silang dalawa, you can mortgage dalawa and buy another 2. Something to that effect. What is the acceptable rental yield? In Metro Manila, in Marikina, okay, first, kung nasaan siya, irregardless. The strategy is always, where can you put your money? For example, the bank is always the reference, di ba? The bank gives you a 1%, 2%, 3% return on time deposit. That will be your reference point. If a property comes to you at ang return niya ay 3% lang, bibilin ba natin? If you are a not so experienced property investor, pwedeng kunin mo yung sa bank. it's okay. You just put your money in the bank, it will earn 3%, same lang sa property. Wala ka pang kailangan i-worry. If you're medyo professional and you know how the property market works, I will buy the property and get the 3% because I know that 3%, if development comes, can be 4%, it can be 5%, it can be 6%. Aside from the rental, what if nag-appreciate yung property? Let's say you're gonna buy a house and lot in Marikina, in Cainta. Let's say nag-appreciate. Tumaas yung value ng lupa. Tumaas yung value ng construction material. Then, your 5 million here and your 5 million here, this will become 8 million. Pero nasa bangko mo will only be still 5 million. I also teach my coaching clients na, it's not always about the price. Diba? If you want to buy this property, you made a tawad, hindi ka pinagbigyan, but you really, really want it, then buy it. Hindi siya yung parang, oh, I'm gonna walk away kasi hindi pinagbigyan yung tawad ko. That's not how you play the property game. If you think it's a good property, you think it's hard to replace, you really want it, you really need it, it has a premium, go for it. It's okay. Especially if you can afford it. It's not always like a tawad-tawad game or a I want this price or else we don't have a deal. When you're the buyer at you walk away, hindi naman natalo yung seller. At some point, the seller, if it's a good property, somebody will buy it eventually. Diba? So come to think of it, if you're the buyer who walked away, who's on the losing end? Who did not get the property that he wanted? Maybe there will be 3 types of property prices. Number 1, below market value. Meaning, after mo inanalyze yung lupa, analyze mo yung bahay, mura siya. It is cheaper to buy this one than to build another one. Second naman is break-even. Break-even fair market. Meaning, okay, if I buy this old house versus I put up my own house, it will come out the same price. O sige, bilhin ko na tong naka-put up na. Kasi I don't want to lose time. I don't want to have to deal with contractors and architects and engineers and business permits and the government and having to go through meetings. Okay, I'll buy this one, ready-made. And then lastly, you buy it above market value. Okay lang naman. Okay lang. There are people who buy above market value. There are people who sell above market value. What are ways, strategies to value land properly? Wow! The shortest way is to get an appraiser. They will do a formal study of your property for maybe 20,000, 25. So if your property is medyo high value, okay lang magbayad ng 20, 25,000. At least you get a professional analysis of your property if you're the one selling. If you're the one buying, okay din naman. You can also hire an appraiser para you get professional feedback. Some people will say, ang mahal, sayang pera. But for me, it's okay. If you wanna do things professionally, that's the way to go. Paano natin i-analyze na personal lang? Okay. Number 1, price comparison method. You go to the internet, you go to Google, you go to Lamudi, you go to Facebook, you type the property. For example, Marikina Heights. Then you see everything there. Mako-compare mo ngayon. So usually, pag lupa, compare mo na yung land value. Pag may bahay na, it becomes more complicated. So how do you analyze it? You go to an architect or a contractor and you ask, architect, contractor, engineer, magkano na ba ang price per square ng bagong bahay ngayon? If the engineer tells you, it's 30,000 per square, Carl, ang isang bagong bahay. Bago, to your specifications, happy ka. Property is driven by supply and demand. If there are a lot of condo units na vacant, people will say, 20,000 sana gusto ko pero kunin ko na itong 18. Nag-offer ng 70. Sige, kunin ko na kaysa vacant ako. That's really just how things work in the supply and demand industry. I want you to be so technically equipped na pag nakita mo, uy, there are like so many units here. Punta ka doon ng gabi, uy, walang ilaw. So maraming vacancy. It looks like the only office building nearby is 3 lang. 7 residential condos. That's a challenge. Let me look at the MRT. Parang konti yung sumasakay sa MRT at konti yung bumababa sa Pioneer Station. Now, you understand the whole traffic movement of people. Not to scare you or to discourage you, but that's how I want you guys to think when you buy a property. You look at all those things. Don't look at the swimming pool. Minor na lang yun. It's a factor na meron, but it's not the major foundation. The foundation is supply and demand. From Jan Season, is Marikina a good place to invest in? Okay, I think Metro Manila is getting crowded. If you imagine a balloon, pag pinisil mo yung balloon, it will expand outwards. So I think Marikina is a good place to invest because it's now moving outward. The only challenge is yung flooding. If a place is flooding, the buyer segment will always be limited kasi mag-worry sila eh. But there are certain areas in Marikina na hindi naman siya flooded. I'm not familiar with the place so I'm sure John mas familiar ka. Nagpa-flood lang yata ngayon ang Marikina when they open the dam. Definitely, it's something to look into because there's potential. Siya yung pa-upswing pa lang. Nagiging masyado ng mahal ang Quezon City, nagiging mahal ng Pasig. So Marikina will be a next expansion area, especially if it's parang free from all those flooding worries.